Well, it's Wednesday night.
Are we live?
We're live,
We're live.
live from the Tennessee studios.
Right?
Yeah,
In my
yeah.
closet.
In my bedroom. Yeah, we're supposed to have a pretty good thunderstorm today, and it hasn't really rolled through yet, and it's starting to get black out, or dark out. So
Yeah, we got the same thing kind of going on over here too. Not crazy thunderstorms; those already passed through. But we have. I was keeping an eye on it, but we have some rain coming through. So yeah.
well, hopefully we can make it all the way through 2 hours of molding young minds, and before we lose power.
And you know what's funny about that is that remember last year and the year before, man, we had like every Wednesday it was like clockwork. There was like this massive thunderstorm, and it would like shut everything down, and we'd come back and we had no power outage. But this year there's been very little thunderstorms. I think like 3 or 4. That's about
There's
it.
probably been very little rain. My grass is all brown, so it just makes it easier when you do burnouts to catch it on fire. So
right.
Yeah. Okay, well, we'll run down the list of folks that are here. Let's see. Lars is here. Max Wedge Dick Dastardly is here. Michael Schmidt is here. Roger Logan from, I guess, from Kansas. And Roger sends me emails quite regularly. So
Nice.
Let's see. Buick Smith is here.
Nice.
Yes, Buick Smith is saying Hardcastle and McCormick. That's correct. We are Hardcastle and McCormick tonight.
Good job.
Bruce Coltgen is here saying Talk Tick. Levi's Backyard Performance. Fab Race Mod Repeat from Northeast Dragway. He says hello from Total Obscurity Racing Stables. Slant Daily Garage. Who's that guy? What's up, suckers? Mama M3. So that's Colleen Tebow. If you didn't know that, she changed her name. Val 360 Jimmy. Blue Grit Garage. Frankenstein C20's in the house. Let's see. First Responder Garage is here. Clayton's Toolbox. And I think that's it for the evening. Well, I'm sure there's going to be more people popping in here, but we already had a question at the very beginning.
Sure.
So Buick Smith asks a question. What is your guys' thoughts on rubber versus aluminum for the weight of wheels? Is a 14 with a 70 series tire better than a 17 with a 50 series? Does rubber and air weigh less than aluminum? No, because it's a steel belted tire generally. And so the more tire you have, the more weight you carry, right? But when you're talking about like 17-inch, those tires start to get pretty big in diameter, and then there is a point at which it crests.
That's exactly what I was going to ask. So what diameter? Are we talking the same diameter? And depending on what we're doing, for drag racing, I'd rather have the bigger sidewall so that way you can get better traction flex. But if it's for cornering, I'd rather have the smaller sidewall.
I've often considered this, like, the Weld drag light is like the lightest freaking wheel that you can get on the street, probably for the price. Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
And so I was thinking 15-inch with just generally like maybe a 60 series tire on it. And you would probably have the lightest rolling resistance you could possibly get on just about anything at that point.
Yeah. And unsprung weight too.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that's where I'd be going with that. And if you're looking for gas mileage, I've often considered doing a video where you just compare gas mileage just by trying to lighten everything up. Because I can put aluminum drums on like my S10 and then 15-inch wheels and an aluminum drive shaft, and all that stuff does add up. I mean, you're not talking a horsepower monster, but when you start taking all that rotating mass out, man, does it make a huge improvement on ET. So you would think it would do the same thing on fuel economy.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Val 360 Jimmy says hello from cold and miserable Melbourne, Australia. It's the dead of winter down there for you guys, so I can believe that.
That's right, huh? It is, yeah, because it's that's right, down under.
Let's see. Buick Smith saying pepperoni in a summer shandy. I am set. Let's do this. So he's ready for it. Nice. Let's see. Hey everyone, what did Dallas just see or eat? I just had dinner with my kiddos. I got my kiddos for a couple of days.
Nice.
Yeah, but eating, for all you Aussies out there, I had a peanut butter and honey sandwich.
I had celery with peanut butter, my protein bar, banana, and my protein drink. That's what I have for dinner every night.
Huh.
It sucks.
Dude, man, I couldn't do that every night. I just did
Every
this
night.
because I just got back from grocery shopping and I'm like, man, I got 13 minutes to make dinner. Peanut butter and honey sandwich. There you go. Bang. And the kids love them. So Danny Boyd says, I missed 5 minutes. You didn't miss much, buddy. It was just us greeting everyone and saying it's Wednesday night. So welcome. Shane and I have a couple of ideas for topics where I was going to discuss. One being, here's something new for the car community. I just saw the news as it flashed up was that the trio from the automotive community known as either Top Gear or the Grand Tour, Clarkson, May, and Hammond, have shut down their production company and are no longer going to do videos.
Calling it quits.
Yeah, I can't believe that. Those guys were so much fun to watch. But I guess you and I will have to step up.
Yeah.
Start doing stuff. Yeah. First one, road trip to Alaska with a $40,000 diesel car.
Right.
That we have to build ourselves.
In a week.
Yeah, in a week. Let's see. CTB.
He's talking about Clayton's toolbox questions right above the missed 5 minutes. He's asking about how do you determine the ideal header length, header tube length, diameter length, and equal length is the best for sure different lengths. Visor just did a video on this, I believe so, and there's a lot of formulas out there. That's a pretty heavy topic because it really there's a lot of theory involved in that, not necessarily.
Well, isn't it also dependent upon like weight of the car, what the intended purpose is, what your camshaft combination is, compression ratio.
Yeah, stepped headers, crossover, X-pipe, RPM range, really, because, the longer your tube, your primaries, the lower RPM, the shorter, the higher RPM. It's just like with everything. How do you want steps? So there's a lot of different things involved in it. Camshaft is a big one too, because that's how it's going to send the pulse back. And how many pulses do you want to go back to the back of the bottom of the carburetor or fuel injector, or however you want to call it. So yeah, that's a big discussion. You could probably make a few videos on that one easily.
Let's see. Fab Race Mod repeats saying Dallas years ago, Hot Rod or Popular Hot Rodding took a big four-door sedan. They started cutting stuff off and making passes to see. Okay, that was originally an article actually done by David Freiberger in Hot Rod Magazine
the Corvette,
called the Caddy Hack.
Yeah, Caddy Hack. That's what it was.
Yeah, and they took a big caddy and they started just literally sawzalling parts off of this thing and see what the ET was till they got down to a floor pan on a frame and a big 500 cubic inch Cadillac. And I want to say they cut it down to like, essentially it was running like 1190s or something like that. But it didn't weigh anything.
I remember there was a video where they did like 10s for under, whatever, a couple $1,000, whatever it was. And they had to use junkier parts mats where they took the Cadillac engine, put it into like a Pinto or something like that. Remember that one?
That was Magnante, and that was the bad seed. That was a Chevette with a 500 caddy.
Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a good one. That was my favorite one.
Oh, let's see here. So everyone's digging on the Hardcastle McCormick video or the picture that I put up there.
So I got something to say real quick while you're doing that. So I feel like I kind of got like little thumbprinted here just a little bit. Me and you've been talking. I've been telling you what I'm going to be doing with the Slant 6, right? That I'm going to be putting in Plan Z, and I'm going to build something that's like 9-to-1, so that way we can kind of do everything with it, right?
Sure.
I just came across a video. Remember Tony Angelo? Remember that guy?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
He has his own video, his own channel now, YouTube channel called Stay Tuned, I think is what it's called.
Okay.
And he just did a Slant 6 where they put a suck through turbo. That's exactly what I was going to do. That's
the draw through turbo setup.
Yeah, suck through. Man, that's exactly what I was going to do. I've been talking to Dallas about this for a few weeks now, and just something that I'm going to do on the side. And then it makes it the easiest way. That way you don't have to worry about, like blowing through a carburetor with all this other stuff. It's just a suck through. It's really a simple deal. And I used to have those on my Volkswagens. I loved it. In fact, I've got a turbo out there right now that I traded for. I traded some crap for that, and it's an eBay turbo, so who cares, right? But I was going to build that thing, and man, it sucks. I felt like I got kind of undercut, but whatever.
Yeah, dude. He doesn't have nitrous on one yet. And he doesn't have I'm telling you, man, there's a lot of cheap ways to go about this, but like, why don't you do a suck through Eaton M90 on one?
A suck through Eaton.
The Eaton M90 came on like the Thunderbird Super Coupes and the
but see that's a lot of stuff that you have to fabricate. A suck through turbo, literally, you put the intake on, you have the manifold come together, you just make a hot side, and then a pipe that comes over from the turbo to the manifold, and then you just make one little section. So all your pipes are going to be about less than a foot long each. Right. It's really a simple deal. Yeah.
That's what they used to do on the Bugs way back when.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's something that you could do like in a weekend, make these parts and put it on your car, and you have a turbocharged car. And in fact, remember I have that distributor that's a locked out distributor. It's that lean burn distributor. I was going to put that sucker in there, and then that way it's just locked out distributor and let her eat. Man, whatever. Anyways, so you guys know what I'm going to be doing.
Here's something interesting. Danny Boyd says, Shane, I was at the body shop supply store and I sent a new buffer pad and it had your name on it. Pulido must mean polish. Another word I seen on it was tampon, must mean pad. So maybe so. Maybe Pulido in, I'm assuming European something means polish.
Polish tampon. That's funny.
Yeah. Let's see. Val360 Jimmy says, have you ever seen Tri-Wise outperform 4-1 on a smaller cube motor like a 5.3 making around 500?
It depends on the RPM. That's really the thing, because Tri-Wise were all about torque. That's one thing I did see on them is we've ran Tri-Wise on when I had my own chassis dyno. Tri-Wise would make a lot of torque. You'd see them more like on the street rods or people who are off-roading. But yeah, if it was more in the RPM range up there, 4-1s always. Or you go 2 to then the 2, 2-1, 2-1.
Well, the Tri-Wise gained notoriety and like a familiarity with hot rodders when it was a lot of focus on SCCA Trans Am racing because they made good torque coming out of the corners.
Yes,
was the big one, and they'd still wind them up. Don't get them wrong, but the torque was like you have much more mid range than you would top end, and that's what you were trading for.
Yeah, there's always a trade. Where are you going to put the trade at?
Right. Well, just like on those engines, if you look at them, most of them had like it wasn't a tunnel ram setup per se, but they had the long runner intakes with the carburetors splayed out, right? Kind of like a Mopar max wedge setup. Yeah, and that was for the torque coming out for mid-range. That was the sole purpose of it. So they were going after as much mid-range as they could, essentially torque coming off the corners.
Yeah, it wasn't for going down a backstretch or anything like that.
Okay. What's on the 2B says that truck with the suck through is awesome.
Yes. So they saw that too. Yeah, that's exactly right. So it was a stock truck. You should watch it. It's a really bitchin' video.
Well, Buick Smith says he thought of you when he watched that. So
yeah, someone sent it to me and was like, "Hey man, check this out." And I literally have all the parts to do the exact same thing. And I'm like, well, that's exactly what I was going to do with Plan Z. That's exactly, I was going to make it. I was hopefully going to try to get it done before No Name Nationals, because it's a really simple deal.
Right. Well, Lori Conboy says, what is your opinion on minimum thickness for a cast piston? We have to cut the factory notches deeper for a bigger cam. The piston is about 1/4 inch thick, 425 Buick nail head, 10.5-to-1 compression NA.
I wouldn't go more than 200. I wouldn't go any smaller than 200,000. 200,000 is like the magic number for a lot of different things.
Well, I've actually done this, and there's a lot of people do this on LSs, to tell you the truth, because they don't want to have to swap out cams and stuff like that, and they got a flat top in them generally. I wouldn't go any more than what's required for you to get your piston valve clearance at all.
Exactly. But usually you got to cut it. And once you find one that works, then just set your stop up for that. But yeah, I wouldn't go any deeper than you need to.
Yeah, and you're talking about all that load, and then also it's creating sharp edges that are prone to detonation, right? When you do that. So, and unfortunately, those nail heads, it's all pent roof design, so they have like a dome piston from the factory, essentially.
Yeah, it's like a wedge looking piston too. They look funky. You know what I mean?
I think they kind of look like Hemis, but then the head is like the opposite of that.
Yeah.
I keep saying the LS is a copy of a Stage 2 V6 Buick, and then you keep saying it's Ford small block, and you know that the valve angle on the LS head is the exact same valve angle as the Buick small block.
Really?
Yeah, it's 15 degrees.
Oh, 15 degrees. Okay.
Yeah. So let's see. All right. Riff Raff Ruckus says 79 Trans Am, 400 stroker, 4-speed, 373 gear, Quadrajet 800 CFM new fuel pump, and sending unit. Motor doesn't want to go past 5K RPMs. Oh, okay. Well, this may be inherent to the Quadrajet.
Yeah, I'll say ignition or it's a fueling or timing thing.
Yeah, it's probably you're probably 100% dealing with the Quadrajet there. Okay,
Running out of fuel.
They have a very small fuel bowl, and I'm not saying that they're junk for this purpose at all. What it is when they made them 800 CFM, that fuel bowl got even smaller, right? And I mean, because you had to get the air somewhere, and there are different floats that you can try in there that are smaller floats that take up less room. Also, setting your float up higher, probably about a 1/16 of an inch, can fix a lot of that. But it does add head pressure, so you might have to change some metering rods. And then there is performance fuel pumps that you can use. That there's a guy named Rob MC that makes performance like a GM fuel pump, where they take a performance Pontiac pump and they add. He's got a different bottom that he puts on it, and it flows significantly more. Also, I'm sure Ram Air 4s had. If you look at a like a Chevrolet big block fuel pump for a truck, if you've ever noticed, the pump on the bottom has essentially twice as much surface area on the bottom. It's a really thick pump. And on the Buicks, it's called a stage 1 pump. That's what you get, the stage 1 Buick. It came with a pump that was like a big block Chevrolet bottom that was for like a 3/4 ton or 1-ton truck. Now, Pontiacs probably have the same thing. You can probably get a fuel pump for, like, say, a Ram Air 4 or a Ram Air 3 combination, and they would have had a Quadrajet as well. But I think you're probably looking at draining your float bowl on the Quadrajet, wide open throttle. Now, if it doesn't want to rev past $5,000 and it's not a fueling problem, you don't say what kind of ignition you're running on this thing, and I'm going to assume that it's probably an HEI.
Yeah. And I've seen those too, where they don't have a good curve in them, where they're not advancing, and that 5,000 RPMs, that's it, because they just won't advance beyond that because it's too heavy of springs.
Or the HEI is notorious for some of the stuff that's the opposite of that, where it has because it was, you got to remember, the HEI came out in 74, so you already had smog in full swing.
Yeah,
so it was like 7.6 to 1 compression, and they cut the slots in them to where it'd give it like 55 degrees of timing.
Yeah, but the springs are so heavy that they just
right.
They just won't go up.
It's either one of the two. Like the HEI is notorious for mechanical failure, where it'll freeze the weights up and they will not advance at all. And once they get to like a certain point, they won't advance.
Yeah,
it might stop at like, say, 10 degrees mechanical advance.
Yeah,
and they won't run well then, especially when you get up in RPM and the fuel expects to burn sooner because the events are occurring so much quicker. Yeah, I'd pull a cap off the distributor, make sure that thing at least swings 20 degrees or more. And then check your fuel, check the float bowl, because it may just be surprising you. Okay.
Yeah, that's a good one right there on the Quadrajet, because that I've seen that.
Yeah, they drain that fuel bowl halfway through a pull, and it's always like in third gear, right when it starts to dig hard.
Yeah, it all of a sudden leans over. You're like, this sucks.
Yeah. The trick used to be take the fuel filter out of the neck, and then without the fuel filter in the neck, you put one in, like one of those clear ones in line on with just rubber ends on it, right? So that you can actually see the fuel flowing through that thing. But the ones in the neck used to get plugged up, the ones on the inlet side of the carburetor.
Those little brass things. Yeah.
Yep. And they also have a check valve on them, so it has to overcome that check valve before to put fuel in it. Okay. First responder garage says, well, if someone picks the wrong cam, you always trade low end for upper end power. Your 2 cents. Yeah, all of it is that way.
Yeah, that's all.
Or you could be putting all low end in and nothing top end, but you got a completely gooned up combination with a big set of cylinder heads.
I've said this many times. Always pick the smaller cam. You'll be much happier. Always.
Yeah. Especially if it's a street driver.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. Especially if it's a street driver. Yeah.
Yeah.
If it's a race car,
Metal Motors is right there with me.
What's
That's
that?
the Eaton M90. How it goes, build a plate and throw a 3800 GTP supercharger on it. That's the Eaton M90. That's what I'm telling you, man. Do that. Nobody's got one of those.
I don't want to deal with it. I want something super simple and easy, and a turbo that with a sucker on it. Then you don't have to put an intercooler on it. That's the beauty of it. Nothing. There's no intercooler or anything.
Dude, if you do if you do some research on it, man, you can get the intercooler and everything off of the supercharged Thunderbird.
Yeah. No, I know it can be done. There's people who've done that. They actually, it comes in from the back, so the carburetor's back by the firewall. It comes in through and then blows right through, and they have it set up. A lot of people have done that. It's a thing. But I wanted to do something really like, look, you don't have to have all these electronics for a turbo. You can literally put one on, put a carburetor on it, let her eat.
Yeah. Yeah, that was the first rendition of the turbo V6 Buick.
Yeah.
It was a draw through. Yeah, had a quadrajet that it drew air through it and went right through the turbo, right through the impeller. So similar to Lori's question, Michael Schmidt says, I am considering adding a super thin top ring on old school pickle barrel style pistons to increase compression in flathead and reduce friction. How high can I go?
How high can you go for the ring to the top of the piston?
I'm assuming compression.
Oh,
but maybe I'm
flathead?
wrong.
Not very much.
I would say is that you can't do much on a flathead because the problem is, one, it's not going to cool.
Yeah.
Right? That head will get so hot that they will warped. Right.
Yeah.
But the other thing is they got such sharp edges to direct the airflow around the valves. Those things are detonation prone bad. Timing
becomes a big issue on those. Is just getting the flame front to go across, and the type of fuel that you're going to have to run to make that thing so it's not detonating all the time. I had a friend who had a flathead in San Diego, and he did a lot of on the flatbed, not the salt bed, but they have the dry lake bed out there.
Oh, El Mirage. Yeah.
El Mirage. That's I couldn't remember the name of it, but El Mirage, and he was always melting pistons for that exact reason. Well, before everyone could buy E85.
If you remember, the big ticket for the flathead actually used to be the Arden overhead valve conversion.
Yeah,
right? And that's because it eliminated the problem, the inherent problem with the flathead.
Everything. Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So Danny Boyd saying riff raff ruckus. A buddy once did up a 350 in his 76, 77 Cutlass with Edelbrock stuff and had the same problem. He sold it to a friend who found a kink dented metal fuel line under the engine. That's why I don't, man, if I have something that doesn't run right, I will dang near kill myself trying to make it run right before I sell it to somebody else, because I'm not going to hear, oh man, it was bad number one plug. It was cracked inside the ceramic. And I'm like, I sold this dang car for 49 cents.
I'll eliminate the fuel. I'll put a fuel tank on the ground. I will put an electric fuel pump on it. I'll eliminate everything before and make sure it's nothing like that stupid. I'm the same way.
First responder garage is asking, Shane, have you messed with taller intake seats to position the valve deeper in the chamber?
No, I've never done that. I personally have never done that. I don't know. I mean, I don't know why you'd want to do that personally, but you would really fuck up the flow. I'm sorry, try not to cuss. You'd really mess up the flow coming around the valve, because then your seat would be much farther back, and then you would have to go around the edge of the valve. So you'd have like a 192 here, and you have a 202 out here.
Huh. And then First Responder Garage says riffraff ruckus, the Quadrajet had different needles and seats to allow more fuel flow with bigger needles. That's correct. They did have a larger needle, and it's actually just the seat. It seems to be the opening in the seat seems to be larger, but there is the cheater way around the fuel limitation on the Quadrajet. What it needs is really bigger fuel bowl, right? But you don't have it. So there's a couple cheater ways around it. One, you double up the gasket on the top, which raises it up about another 1/16 of an inch or whatever.
I've
but
seen
you
that.
also they have floats that are
Smaller.
They're literally half the size of the regular float. The only problem is, I'm telling you, with those smaller floats like that, it has less leverage to shut the fuel off, right, when it's full. And I've also run them like 1/16 of an inch higher without having much of a problem. Now, if you put a gasket on there, 2 gaskets, an extra gasket, right, you could probably run that like 1/8 of an inch higher and be okay with it. But I am warning you, it creates more head pressure in the fuel bowl, which means that you have more fuel going through when the metering rods are pulled out. So you need generally like at least 1 to 2 sizes larger in metering rod, so you get the same air fuel ratio.
That's funny you said that, because that's exactly what I've noticed too with my Edelnator, is that because I have much more fuel in there, it's got a bigger head pressure on it. So I actually had to go smaller jets because of that, because that is really a thing, But then again, I even had to go smaller too, because I put 150 needle and seats in there, and I'm only running 5 pounds of pressure to it, because it's got, you don't want to aerate the fuel. So I have less aeration on the fuel plus a bigger head pressure. So I went down almost 3 jet sizes.
Well, I've also played with, see, the problem with the fuel bowl on the Quadrajet is it shares some of the volume with the accelerator pump. Okay. So when you put a big shot accelerator pump in that sucker, it drains the fuel out of it fast. So what you want is a small shot, but it to be rich and then lean out on the top end. Right. Does that make sense? And so the whole thing is a balancing act, and it's really, really hard to get. It's difficult to get a Quadrajet to work right to begin with. And then you start throwing all these other factors in there, like, hey, now it has a fuel requirement that's twice as much as what it had from the factory. And then a camshaft that has a ton of duration and overlap, and the power piston in there, that thing is so dependent upon engine vacuum that you got like the lightest spring in there for like a 231 Buick on your hanger, right, on your power piston, pushing it up and down, and it just can't. It creates so little vacuum, and they are very difficult, and that's where, if you look at any of the factory GM stuff, any of it, right, like the serious performance stuff, when they got to a point where essentially when it came with a Duntov 3030 and a Chevrolet, they took the Quadrajet off and threw it in the trash, and they put a Holley 780 on it. And that's because the Holley works so much better at wide open throttle, which that engine was intended for to begin with. There's a reason why it came with solid lifter cam, or like big port heads and stuff like that. The Buicks were never that way. I mean, ever. The stage 1 is as nasty as they got from the factory, in the camshaft, and on that thing you would almost compare it to a LeSabre cam. So I mean, of course it was bigger, but it's the same way with the Pontiacs. I'm certain that when they got to Ram Air 4 and stuff like that, they probably came factory with a Holley, but I don't know for 100% certain.
Hey, we should skip ahead a little bit, because we're about 10 minutes behind already.
Okay. Well, all right. Well, let's see. 10:23. Okay. I had a friend had the problem on his 455 GTO 4-speed when drag racing, and he wanted it looking stock with the Q-Jet. He ended up getting a special larger needle and seat that fixed it. Yes, and matter of fact, those special larger needle seats are available in like the dual jet 2 barrels. which is weird. They screw right into the Quadrajet and they work the same, except for the dual jet, I think is what it was called, was half the Quadrajet. Just didn't have the secondaries on it at all.
Yeah. They go 3 down, Buick Smith.
3 down. Okay.
He goes, Shane, I was amazed at how cold that intake was when the draw-through setup. Yes, that's what I've been saying a long time ago. In fact, I did make a mention of it about a year ago about draw-through turbos when I was talking about my Volkswagens. I used to have, before I went to fuel injection on my Volkswagen, I had a draw-through turbo. I had a 500 CFM 2-barrel on it. I had a 2332 on a draw-through and no intercooler. And it was a beautiful setup because I would get done with the end of the race. I'd come back around and that thing literally, if it was like, there's a few times of the year where it's actually humid in San Diego. There was literally ice that would form on that intake from when the humidity was outside because of that thing. So that's exactly what I was going to do. And I was going to be the first one, but man, I get undercut.
It's all right, man. And it's like, that's the good thing about, well, that's the tough thing about ideas is when you have them, you've got to be on it because somebody else is right behind you coming up with that, right?
I had Gilbert slanted sled in the garage.
No, I know, but
yeah.
Well, okay, all right. I'm working on one that everybody's going to dig on here, and I guess I could probably say it because there's somebody that have to be really hot on it to beat me to the punch. But I got one coming up. It's a Chevrolet. I haven't done a Chevrolet engine since 2004, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But this is everybody's familiar with the DZ302. This is a new rendition of it. This is made of all GM parts from like say 1998, and we're going to see what a Vortec-headed roller cam DZ302 that I've coined the Easy 302 is going to do. Made with factory parts
for years.
I know, but I just it took me forever to get all the parts together and stuff like that. And I'm going to make this thing happen. So we're going to see what kind of RPM it turns, what kind of power it makes, because a Vortec head has got to run a damn circle around a double hump. I mean, there's no doubt about it. It's 30 years of engineering there. Let's see. Fabrice Mod Repeat says that was the trick to the flathead. Like the beat chunk says, it's ported and relieved. That coupled with aluminum heads and the water pump mods will keep it cool for the most part.
For the most part. just don't come off the freeway and come to a light and have to sit there for about 3 minutes.
What? Lori Conboy says we don't have a channel. The general public has no interest in Buicks anymore. Oh, that's not true. I do my Buick channel and it does pretty good. And then when I go to the Buick Nationals, everyone knows me.
If one of our mods could put up Mr. Rotter's Neighborhood, that's a Buick channel.
Yeah, that's my channel. Yeah, Mr. Rotter's Neighborhood.
Mr. Rotter's. All Buick all the time. Live.
Levi's Backyard Performance says, so if smooth flow into the cylinder head and into the combustion chamber, does angle of the flow change the power it's able to make? I've never seen a dyno session that tried multiple angles and plenum.
Well, okay, the plenum is not going to really make, it does make a difference, but it's valve angle going into the chamber itself that makes a big deal. The less of an angle, that's why, like, say, a Chrysler 18 degrees superior to a 23-degree Chevrolet, and the LS is even better at 15. So that's really where it makes the difference. And then trying to line that all up so you want to keep it as straight as possible going into the port. That's where the Gen 3 Hemi shines, is because it literally goes straight into the port. If that's answering what he's asking.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, the easiest way to see this is like if you're talking to smooth flow into the cylinder from the valve, the easiest way to see this is a 3-angle valve job. Just take an existing stock 45-degree single cut valve and replace it with a 3-angle valve job, and you'll see probably 20% increase.
Yeah, I back cut valves on the Slant 6. Stock is 144. I back cut the valves and just do a simple cleanup bowl. I think it's like 177 just by doing those two things. That's it. You can change the valves and all this other stuff, and you'll gain another 10 CFM, and you're putting $1,000, so it's not worth it.
Well, here's our buddy. This is Barkley Schmidt, and everyone here probably knows Barkley from No Name Nationals. He was the I guess the show director, right? The event director at No Name Nationals from
Oh,
22 and 23. So now he's no longer there at affiliated with the racetrack. So he's putting a channel together with his family, and he's trying to get himself into the No Name Nationals. So,
oh, hey,
and
hey, John, can you put his channel up here? And
yeah, he's
I'll
here
go.
begging for, he's here panhandling for subs. He says begging for subs, but you don't beg for subs on this community. You just panhandle for them. Once they know
No,
you're
we'll give
there, they
them
go
to
out
you.
and hit you up. Yeah.
Is it called the Schmidt Show Garage? I'm gonna go do it
Yeah.
right
The
now.
Schmidt Show Garage.
I'm gonna go do it right now. Schmidt Show Garage. Here we go. That's a tongue twister, man. Try to say that twice. He's got 76 subscribers. Let's try to get him over 100. All right, there you go. I'm number 77, dude. There you go. I'm gonna boom, boom, go here, go there, and I'm gonna post it up here right now. And there you go.
All right,
Boom.
so Danny Boyd, he's asking questions when I told him about my EZ302. No, it's going to be a large journal Chevrolet small block because I figured out that about 15 years ago that there is a 4.3 liter V8 LT1 that was made from 94 to 96 as the base model engine for like the full-size B-body cars like Caprice and Roadmaster. And it had a 3-inch stroke crank with a large journal on it. And I thought, okay, in a Vortec truck block, 4-bolt main, you throw all the neat stuff at it. All you need is a piston and a rod combo. Well, it just so happens I snagged up a set of DZ302 replacement pistons, and I'm just running a stock 5.7 rod, and we're going to see what kind of power it makes. But the cool thing is I used all GM parts, and I have a the camshaft I'm going to use to see the original DZ302 is a Duntop 3030 cam. The one I'm going to use is a LT4 hot cam. So we're going to see what this thing will do.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
I just subscribed to him.
Yeah, well, I hope Barkley makes it because, I mean, Barkley was, he was my right-hand man last year. He was my go-to guy. I was a freaking sobbing mess. And so Barkley stepped up and just ran the whole thing for me. And then, for the part that I was supposed to do. And then, because John was still there, right? But, and then the first year, if it wouldn't have been for Barkley, I don't think we would have got the whole dang thing off because it was just a mess. When you do something the first time and you've never done it, and it's all being put together, and then you expect it to go the way that it's envisioned in your mind, and it never does because no one thinks about, hey, the toilets are overflowing in the trackside restroom, and that's going to take you away from doing other things, right? Or you didn't get the memo that they were going to fire their entire track staff to watch this thing flop. And so myself and John and Barkley ended up pulling the whole thing off with the three of us. And thank God for Ron Ward being up in the tower, because had Ron not been up in the tower, I don't think we could have pulled anything off. We didn't have enough people to really, because we were all trying to manage the chaos and still put it on and make it seamless for everyone else. If you saw me on the first year, I was a freaking fragged mess. Just running from point A to point B and cleaning the track, and then was setting up the lanes, and oh my gosh. And me and Barkley just ran it hard. And, but it was, Barkley and I had a good working relationship because the Jeffers Motorsports Park is what that track was called before, was notorious for people not showing up or quitting the weekend that you're putting on an event. And Barkley and I would always have to put our fingers in the dike and just pull that shit off. If you wanted to eat, we're going to have to bend over backwards. So that's
I remember the toilets overflowing. I was the one that told you. I was like, dude, we got to fix this, man.
Yeah. I didn't even expect that. So let's see here. First responder garage. If you don't raise the port, you'll never exceed 1.35 per cube. I'm not worried about that. I'm just, the stock DZ made 357 horse, I think is what Holdner's made. So I'm just going to go by Holdner's dyno video. It tells you exactly what kind of power it made at where. And I'm just going to compare mine to that. I'm going to take it to the dyno and I'm going to run it on the dyno. And we're going to find out what it actually makes. because I've never seen one.
Yeah,
And
that'd be good.
yeah, I think it's going to be interesting because, I could have done a little bit better. I could have got a longer rod, but then I wanted to have a custom piston, and that's not what I wanted. I wanted to use something that was pretty much factory replacement parts.
Yeah.
Let's see. Okay. What's on the 2B says gill welding and fabrication has a lot of support for the Slant 6, making it easy to turbocharge. I think you guys mentioned them before.
Yeah, I actually have them on my phone. We're pretty good friends. We bounce ideas off of each other weekly. So yeah, we're good friends.
Let's see here. Okay, so John Wilburn is telling Barkley you should ask the crowd if there's any benefit to registering for the no-name net of 500. Let's see. Barkley says, thanks, Dallas. I'll be there keeping the show rolling still. Oh, well, good. I hope you are there. And if you don't have to keep the show rolling, we'll just sit back and drink for a few more adult sodas. So.
Some road sodas?
Yeah, I guess. And I think Barkley's cut those out right now, so maybe I won't. Okay. Michael Schmidt says, valve job. Seems like there is no detriment to a 30-degree angle valve seat. What do you guys think on this? Should get air or more air quicker? We've actually talked about this on this show before.
Yeah, 3 angle. Yeah, you go 30 to 45. There's like, is it 15, 30, 45? Isn't that the 3 angles? Or I can't remember the 3 angles off the top of my head.
It's 60, 30, and 45. What it was is you're splitting the difference. The 45 is actually the seat area where what is your margin on your valve, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the 30-degree is essentially out on the very edge, and 60-degree, I think, is on the inside, but it speeds up the air across the 45, and then the 30 is technically the best number, right? Isn't that right? Or 30 is on the inside, 60 is on the outside, 45 is in the middle, and 30 gives the highest velocity of the air, but it also the problem with 30 is what? It limits the airflow because of the diameter.
Yeah, I don't remember. I don't remember.
We've talked about this before. We had this exact same conversation, and 45 was the reason why you do 45 is because it splits the difference.
Yeah, and then the other two are
characteristics of both.
Yeah, that's where the 15 came from. It was like it's 15 degrees from the 65 to the 40, or 60 to 45. That's what it was.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I don't remember.
Okay. Lori Conboy says, as bad as the Buick 425 is undervalved with a 187 intake, do we still need to follow the 88 to 90% throat diameter when porting these heads? 4340 bore and 364 stroke. Okay. I'm not a fan of the nailhead. I'm not a fan of them. Because of what you just listed there. The velocity is really high through that small valve, making good torque, but they just fall on their face anything over by like 3,500 RPM. And that's the downside of the whole thing. Now, with that said, there is a lot of comparable neat stuff about a 425 Buick. One being that 364 stroke, the other being that because it has such a short, small stroke, it has a really small main bearing. It's only 2.5-inch main bearing, same as a Chevrolet small block. And that thing has the potential to wind up really hard if it had some good cylinder heads that flowed. And that's the downside. But the steel crank that's in them, strong, really strong. Matter of fact, I used to run the stock steel cranks in Top Fuel racing. I mean, you're going to be limited because your valves are actually going to end up touching sooner rather than later.
Mm-hmm.
And Visor did a video a few years ago actually decreeing that compression ratio crutches a small pour flowing exhaust side, right? So because the compression ratio, I mean, like you think about it, the higher the compression ratio, the bigger the bang, the more it forces the air out of that small valve. And then also it decays so quickly.
Yeah.
Pressure decays so quickly that the small valve doesn't seem to hinder it on the exhaust side as bad as a restricting exhaust or intake valve does.
Because it's under such high pressure. And you
Right.
can also crutch that too with a camshaft to a point.
Right, until you have no more surface area, you could actually open the valve or keep it open longer.
Yeah. Well, also too, because you're going to be encroaching onto the lobe separation angle, and then getting into your because you're extending it so much farther, your decay happens much faster.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so intake valve is the big one. I put the biggest intake valve you could find in the damn thing. I really would. Also, nail heads. Make sure you know the person that has experience with nailhead Buicks, because I've seen them. They're on the Buick forum all the time, where guys will put hardened valve seats in a nailhead engine, and they were never intended for hardened valve seats, and they end up cracking the heads, and then the heads are garbage. But there's something is, if you do want to play with nail heads and you want to have fun with nail heads, there's something that's really cool about a nail head. It has the same exact bore centers as a 455 Buick, meaning that if the head came relatively close,
You can bolt it on.
you could almost bolt it on that block, right? And then have a 425 with the small bearings, the long rods, and have a good stage 2 455 head on that thing. And since it's the same bore center, I don't know what the deck height on the nail head is, but I bet it's probably pretty dang close to whatever a 455 is. And
Now, I've made a lot of cams for the nail head, and you got to make the right cam for them too. It's not just, oh, this is the same cam. They tend to like their own cams, just like some of the Hemis too, the Gen 1, Gen 2 Hemis. They got to have their own kind of cam also.
Here.
Oh, we're way behind.
Yeah. Okay. First responder garages. What is the LSA and intake lobe centerline on the cam dowels? I do not know, not off the top of my head. But it's as simply as just look up the LT4 hot cam, the GM LT4 hot cam. That's what I'm running.
I'll see what it is.
Okay, so Michael Schmidt, Dallas, can you explain more on what you're doing with the DZ302? What's different or unique with that build? Okay, first off, it's not a DZ302. It's actually, I'm using a later model one-piece rear main seal block with a factory roller cam. And I'm using the crankshaft out of the what they call the L99 LT1.
You should save it for your video.
Yeah.
Save all this for your video.
I will, but yeah, stay tuned. It'll all be coming soon, because I'm literally picking up a block and crank at the machine shop, so it'll be going together quick.
Here's the cam specs. It is intake duration of 50 is 218, exhaust is 228. With the 1.5 rocker arm, it's 492, 492, 112 lobe separation angle, typically installed on a 108 ICL. There you go.
That's and it's a hydraulic roller cam.
Yep, hydraulic roller.
In comparison to a Duntov 3030, which one do you think is going to make more power, Shane?
Duntov's a little bigger, but this is a hydraulic roller, so a little more air into the curve. I'm going to see with the hydraulic roller.
I think what's going to happen is we're going to see that this thing makes just a little bit more power than a DZ302. Like, let's say it made 370 horse. But what you're going to find is it's going to happen. I think it's going to happen 500 RPM sooner.
Yeah.
And I think its drivability is going to be freaking sweet compared to that DZ302, which is notoriously soggy on the bottom.
And I think because of it's got a better head, it won't need as much camshaft, because it'll take that smaller camshaft and RPM it out farther.
And it probably will. Yeah, because that's the way. Like, if you want to build the most reasonable version of any engine, buy the best damn cylinder head you can possibly buy. And just whatever.
Someone just quoted me on this. She was in here just a minute ago. She was talking about this exact thing. She's like, I bought the best heads ever. And they were like, it's a Ford. And she was saying the exact same thing. You guys always say, buy the best heads and then build the engine around it. It's the truth.
Yeah, it's how you do it. And what's cool about it is if you put the too small a camshaft in there, it is just so much mid-range torque.
Yeah, it
Um,
won't care.
yeah, no, it may not be 10,000 RPM zinger, but golly, it'll be everything what you wanted, guaranteed.
Case in point, Gen 3 Hemi, 6.4 Gen 3 Hemi. You put a camshaft in them, put headers on them. They change a little bit with the headers, but you put a camshaft in those things, they'll pick up 100 horsepower, and they'll be able to RPM to 7,000 RPM on something as puny as, like, say, a 6.4 with a 225 duration of 50 on the intake, because the heads flow almost 360 CFM from the factory. That's the only reason why.
Let's see. Mm-hmm.
It's like that should be like we should have a shirt, a meme, buy the best heads you can. You know what I mean? That should be like our, like two guys.
Yeah, well, that should be like the thing is like a couple of top fuel heads sitting on a pile of dog shit, right?
Right, right.
Let's see. There you go. Oh, Ron Ward's popped in here. Okay, so Ron Ward says small main bearings equal less bearing speed. Exactly, which means less friction at RPM. I'm a big fan of small main bearings. I really am, and that's because everything I ever ran had big main bearings. And when I actually saw something with small main bearings, I'm like, what the hell am I working on? Why am I not using one of those?
Yeah.
Right. Let's see. First Responder Garage says compression crutches a lot of things. It does.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
100%.
Okay, this is something. Levi's backyard performance. So I like to see Top Fuel go back to normal engine combinations instead of this weird mix of 9 engines. Bugs the crud out of me. What happened to win on Sunday, sell on Monday? That all happened when the Hemi came out, when the 426 Hemi. Actually, it even happened
Twin
immediately thereafter.
The twin mag. As soon as they put a twin mag on those, because mostly if it was a single mag, you could, for the most part, run factory parts. You could. I mean, if you had your tune-up right, you could get away with it. The second they put that twin mag on there, they could detonate a lot more fuel, and that's what killed it.
It wasn't an overnight sensation thing.
No.
It was originally they were running the 392 Hemi, and the only reason the Hemi actually got out in the lead on any of this for Top Fuel was because the block was so robust. They called it the elephant for a reason. It's not because it was some monster killer horsepower thing. It's because it had so much cast iron in it that they wouldn't blow up like everything else. And then
less likely to blow up.
Right. They still would blow up, but I mean, it was less likely. The other thing was when the 426 came out, everybody was still, of course, running the 392. Mm-hmm. And even Don Garlett's in his own book, he talks about they tried the 426 and they couldn't get it to work. Yeah. They could not get it to run. It would not run.
52 degrees of timing.
That's what he said it took. And then all of a sudden, the magic happened.
Yeah.
And it really was just a screw up because they had it on a dyno and it was a screw up and they got the timing wrong and it had so much advance in it, so much lead in it that it ended up just being a completely different engine.
Yeah.
And so, okay. What? Ford put out a release about the new Torino they say they're going to build. Mix of a 2017 Stang GT and the GT40. Wow, well, I hope they do, but I hope that's legit.
Yeah, I hope it's legit too. It's not some like hybrid 6-cylinder, electronic thing.
I'd hate to see it's an electric performance car, blah blah blah.
That'd get a big
Ron Ward. That was when the Mustang Mach-E, I was like, wah wah. Oh my god.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? Mostly Old Parts Ron says, speaking of head bolt spacing, Big Block Mopar and AMC share very similar bolt patterns. Fred Brewer took advantage of this and put a set of B1. I don't know what is TS heads on a 401. B1 TS heads. Perfect for drag week. SS, SB, and A. Okay, so super stock. I don't know what TS heads are. I'm assuming that might be top sportsman heads. But AMC was weird when they came on their V8. They were like literally the last ones to come out with a V8, right? And it was a big mix of Chrysler. Actually, it's a lot. It's got a lot of Chrysler, a lot of Buick. Because if you didn't know this, AMC bought the Buick V6 in like '67, and they ran with it all the way through 1974, and that was one of their staples in the Jeep inventory. Was like all the Jeepsters and CJ5s and stuff like that. You could get it with the 225 Dauntless. That's the V6 Buick. They bought it directly from Buick.
He says TS stands for totally serious.
Oh,
I actually just I've heard the TS too, B1 TS. I thought they were like it was a Brodex head, but then I did the B1 TS and it came up as a Predator head. So I'm not
this is a family friendly show, but I was hoping it was like titty slapping heads or something.
Oh.
But, yeah, I didn't know what
the transsexual part of it.
No, and you know what I heard tonight was the funniest thing I ever heard. You know how like your phone will change words if it doesn't make sense, like you haven't said it before.
Yep.
So my buddy messaged me, he was asking me about transmission fluid, right? He's like, "Hey man, my car is leaking granny fluid." And I'm like, "Granny fluid? What the hell's granny fluid?" Right? And I thought that's the most awesome thing I've heard tonight. It's the gender neutral tranny fluid, right? So granny fluid.
That's funny.
All right. Ron Ward saying, okay, and Shane and I were all about this like in about 2015, right?
Yep.
Oops, from 1320 to 1,000 feet, NHRA should have simply required one mag only. We actually talked about going to one mag and narrow the tire up to like a 10-inch tire.
Yes, we said this because I was doing all the heritage racing, and the heritage racing was still 1320, and it was John Force was out there, a lot of the big time guys, because they could actually run a full 1320. And I've been saying this for day one: go back to a single mag. And then Dallas was like always saying, put it to a smaller tire. That would make it so much more fun. It would bring some of the racing back into it.
Yeah. And well, the other thing is, you might find that you don't need a 500 cubic inch engine. You might need something like 300 cubic inch engines to get the thing down the track with that small tire and still do the mile an hour. So that's the thing I really wanted was that small tire deal because they just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And there's two things that are unlimited in top fuel, right? Unlimited, which is virtually chassis, tires, clutch, all that stuff, the car.
Yeah.
The engine is completely limited. Okay. So don't think it's not. It's completely limited. And then the budget is unlimited on 100%. That car. Yeah. And that's the thing I don't like it's when they went to the 500 cubic inch rule and then they started making the billet blocks and they took the best out of everything and put it in one engine. It just kind of like
killed it.
Yeah. And the money was just unreal. And if you remember, there was a big thing between, what was it? The factory back racers and the guys that were doing it out of their pocket, doing it for love, right? We did it for love.
Well, it's $50,000 for a weekend. Clay Milliken, we sponsor him, and so I know him pretty good, and it's $50,000 for a weekend. It's $15 per, or no, 55 something dollars per gallon, and he burns 15 gallons per run of nitromethane.
I want to say 42 gallons is now up to $2,887. $2,887 for 42 gallons of nitromethane.
Yeah, so he burns 15 gallons in one run. That's a burnout line down the tracks, 15 gallons of fuel. One pass. And then you figure that pistons and rods are consumables. You're changing those out literally almost every run. You're inspecting them. So it's between 45 and 50,000 bucks a weekend. It's incredible.
Okay. Buick Smith is saying, watched a video about the Nuremberg. They said one of the rarest cars you will ever see on the ring is any GM SS car. Think about that.
Well, yeah, it's in Germany. Yeah.
Yeah. And well, one, I hate to say this, it's going to hurt some feelings, right? But Americans aren't ones that really cared about the Nuremberg. Like, we went to the drag strip. That was our deal. right? That's why every car that came out of Detroit up till like probably like 2003 had a freaking attached quarter mile ET time to them.
Yeah. Oh, Miss Catchy? Is that how you say that?
Yeah.
She's the one who said about she quoted us and about the cylinder head thing. She quoted on one of my little shorts that I did. It was her who did that. So yeah.
Izzy saying Granny Juice, Beverly Hillbillies. Yeah.
Right.
All right. Yeah. Oh, where did they go? Miss Kenji says billet blocks, another world. Yes.
Right.
There's no guy like that's like if you ever watch like how long you've been watching car shows, Shane? Like probably from 90s.
Yes, when they started coming out, like when you had the Sunday night cars, you know, they had like the 3 shows that were on Sunday morning on Speed Vision on Channel 45.
Oh,
It was
okay.
actually, I think it was Spike.
It was Spike, and it was TNN way back in the day.
Yeah, no, that's what it was. Yeah.
And I was actually just going to bring that exact thing up. Okay, billet blocks, another world got me thinking. Have you ever watched like horsepower TV or what is it called, engine power now or anything like that? And they're like, well, we're going to build a regular motor like a guy would in his garage, and then they pull out like, here's our world products block, and here's our Sonny Bryant crank, and you're like,
right. No,
dude, what planet are you on where normal people buy that stuff?
Yeah.
Right? And
start with the stock crank, stock rods.
Yes.
Let's start there.
It would start with just, and not even a good stock crank and a good set of stock rods and block. You know, it was like most of us started with what used to be called, and it was a nice way to say ragged out piece of junk, was what was called the season block. All right. It was the block that you would get, your buddy he'd already had it bored 60 over, right? It was worn out. It couldn't go any further. And it had been thrown in the back of a truck, and it was sitting there getting rained on for 4 or 5 months as he used it for ballast in the wintertime so his tires didn't spin going to work, right? And then you're like, hey, man, what's up with this 4-bolt main block back here? Oh, it's already 60 over. And you're like, you start thinking, you know, it really isn't that much more money for a set of custom-made 70 over pistons, right? And that's where all that stupid stuff starts, right?
Yeah,
and you're like,
it's truth.
Yeah, and you're like, oh, 350. You start putting 350 Chevrolet in the part, is searching for parts, and the price goes up. But if you put in 305, it's the same crank. So you get a crank out of the 305 and a set of rods out of a 305 because you can get them for freaking $40. And you build yourself some cobbled piece of junk. And that's where we all started from, not from World Products block that we're going to machine to a 125 bore and then bush all the lifters. And no, that's where I'm at today after 35 years of screwing around with stuff that I just keep building on top of it since it doesn't blow up. That's kind of where I'm at today.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's why I'm doing Slant 6s. I'm going to blow them up and I don't care.
Well, I think the one I need to gravitate towards is something that's like relatively easy to get, that's plentiful, right? I've noticed 300s are pretty plentiful, but
Slant 6s are out there, man. You can get them from usually under $300. They're everywhere, and they just seem to find me. So I'm just gonna start ripping them up, man. I've got stockpile of cranks. I've been saving for about 4 or 5 years now, so I've got them stacked like cordwood out there. So I'm gonna start having at it.
And Ron Ward saying TNN was the American Sports Cavalcade. That was the thing I really liked growing up in the 80s was you had some of the greatest voices. And TNN, what was cool about the TNN, we talk about, I think, about this about like every week almost. Yeah. What was cool about TNN is you had some of the greatest voices in drag racing announcing all of their sports cavalcade stuff. So they might have drag racing. It might be NHRA drag racing. The following week, it'll be like IHRA drag racing. And then the following week, it might be swamp buggies, right? Or the boats that turn on a dime, or all that crazy stuff that, and it still had Dave McClellan and it had Steve Evans as the voice. And they could make like I swear they could have two Japanese Beetles racing side by side.
It sounds good.
And it
Yeah.
sounds exciting and fun.
Yeah.
And that's what those guys were. They were good at it. They were I don't know, masters of their trade, just like Mr. Ron Ward.
You know that they used to have this one called, it was the Extreme Motorsports Hour. Did you ever see that, where they would have all these like really off crazy stuff? It wasn't like even the jets. It was literally like the jet boats. It was like airplane racing or whatever. It was just the most amazing type of racing.
That was
3
on
wheels.
TNN?
Yeah, it was called the Extreme Motorsports Hour. It was like, yeah, if you Google it, you'll check it
That's
out.
the
But
kind of stuff I do enjoy, is like
yes,
when it's an unknown sport and it's the first time you see it, and it's like, or a motorsport that is, and
yeah,
it's the first time you see it and you're like, wow, how
yeah.
cool is that, right?
They had
Like,
train races. They had figure
th-
eight races
I
doing
do remember
it.
the train race stuff. Man, and so John Wilbur says, Dragzine had an article on an $800,000 motor coach and trailer for everyday readers. Yeah, they've left the world behind. They don't understand what the everyday reader is
They
right now.
added too many zeros. There's too many zeros on that for the everyday person.
Yeah,
Under 8,000. Try that.
yeah, that was when I was running the AHRA, and a lot of your people here, some of them remember, some of them weren't. But when I first started doing it, I had articles. I actually had a newsletter that I would send out like every 2 months, and in the 2 month articles, the whole idea was build a tow rig that could get you to the track that was actually economical, right? Because that's something that no one does. That nobody did articles on that, on towing, getting 20 plus, or 10 plus miles a gallon on gasoline. That's
Or
like
a cam
unheard of.
manufacturer. Remember, I did that. I made you a custom cam just for that.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
And the ridiculous thing about it was, like, people didn't care. They didn't want to show up in a 1994 Ford truck. And the whole idea behind the Ford truck was, I'll explain something to you. There's a I can't remember it. I can't remember. There's a book about motorsports, about SCCA car racing, and guys were buying MGTDs. And if you've never seen one of those, look them up. They kind of look like, something from the 20s or 30s, but they ran them all the way up through the 50s and 60s. But it's a really small 4-cylinder European car that you'd have to beat on pretty hard. But they were lightweight, and people were towing with a single axle trailer. And one guy figured out everybody was buying these freaking motorhomes to pull them with. And he's like, I don't have that kind of cash. So he went and bought like a 1979 Suburban 3/4 ton 2-wheel drive with a 454 in it. And the coolest thing I ever thought about was when he got to the track, he was sleeping in this Suburban, and everybody around him was giving him crap because they're all in motorhomes. And he said, I don't understand why you're giving me crap. I made it here. I'm just like you, and I'm going to beat your ass on the track just like I do every week.
Right.
Right. And then it dawned on me, like, what does it matter how you get there as long as you get there? Right. And that's where me and the rest of the drag racing community separates, because I was never willing to put everything I had into going drag racing. That was a hobby I had that I enjoyed, and I was never going to shortchange my family and kids. Well, now that the family part of it's kind of left, I'll go all in. I don't care. But I don't have anything to really put all in. So it's probably going to stay the same.
Yeah.
Let's see. Levi says, John, my motor coach and trailer cost like one monthly payment for the motor coach and trailer, even all decked out. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Dude, I still have a 2004 Dodge diesel truck. It's 20 years old. Does it just fine.
Yeah. That's how it should be done.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be an enjoyable hobby. And when you're broke, that's not enjoyable.
Yeah. When you're making payments to go drag racing, that sucks.
Dude, I remember the first time I ever heard that before. In the 90s, they called it it's going credit card racing. Card racing. And I mean, they had the meanest car at the track.
Yeah, the Mustangs. Remember that was when everyone was doing the Mustangs, the pilots.
Yeah, in debt up to their eyeballs. So,
and then they blow it up, and you're like, man,
yeah,
shit.
I guess that thing's done. Let's see. Michael Schmidt says, I called a couple of piston companies here to make some simple flat tops with modern ring packs and lighter than the Titanic pistons I have. Starting price was 1,500-ish. Too
That's about
much.
right.
Yeah, that's probably about what it's going at today. It used to be about $900
Yeah.
about 3 years ago. So just look at inflation and everything else is going up. But
Yeah.
not all hope is lost. Okay, I'll tell you something cool. Depending upon what your bore size is, and you know what, I'll do this here live so everybody can see it, because this is how I do it. And I'll see if I can share my screen and do all this jazz so that you guys can see this thing, because I'm getting to be like a pro at this. Let's see.
This is how you get your piston sizes.
Yeah, this is how because I use Buick stuff, and it's like everything's custom.
Yeah.
You can't just go order a Buick piston. Okay, so let me see how I share this screen here. Video file share screen. Oh yes, this one, please. Okay, can you guys see that?
Yeah, Summit.
Okay, yeah, I'm on Summit. All right, Summit it used to be the best tool for utilizing how to search for pistons, right? So let's say most of my Buick junk sources around 3.8-inch bore. All right, so if you go to engines and components, okay, and then you scroll down to pistons, and then you got pistons here and piston rings, and you don't worry about rings until you have a set of pistons you can use. So you click on pistons. Now, this stuff over here, this filter assembly, all the filter stuff, filter by vehicle, search within results, filters, brands, and then you put in all this crap. You don't need none of that horse shit. Okay. So
Bore size.
yeah. So I go right here. All right. Show all. You see that? You could have a flathead. I don't know what 2.218-inch bore is, but I'm assuming that's probably like a 3.5-inch horse or a 3.5 horse Briggs. Okay. That's if you're searching for that, but you just scroll down. All right.
Whatever size you're looking for is right there.
Right. And that's what's cool about it is that most of my stuff in the Buick community is around 3.8-inch bore.
Let's look for Slant 6, 3.4. Nothing there.
Okay. You want to go to 3.4?
Yeah.
We can do it. There's 3.4 right here. Okay. So, and what's weird about it is it has that's 3.444. Okay. How big is the bore on a Slant 6? We'll do this with a Slant 6.
Right there, 3.4. Right there. That's
is that standard bore 3.4 inch?
So, yeah, go 3.5. Let's do a 3.5. It's 100 over.
Okay, we'll do that. Alrighty. That's 100 over, you say, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so here's how I would do it. Here's how I do it. Let's say 3.460 is a 60 over bore. So we'll start there.
But that's a piston that they make.
Right, but it don't matter.
Okay. I see what you're doing. Yeah.
All right. So this is how I narrow it down when I'm playing piston games. Because there's nobody makes anything for what I got. All right. So in 3.5, you said 3.5 is 100 over, and that's where you'd like to stop, right?
Yeah, that's where we'll stop. Yeah.
Okay. So we'll get results, and it's going to pull up every piston that has all those bores that we selected. See them all right there at the top?
And then you can go compression height.
Okay, then that's what you need is compression height and wrist pin size. Which wrist pin can you live with? And you don't worry about bore millimeter. Don't get lost in that. That's just all German stuff, and that's a whole nother language. Okay, so stroke, don't even worry about that because you don't even know what rod you have. So the compression height is not dependent upon that. Okay, actual indigenous placement, that's nothing. That's not important. Rod length is not important. Okay, now you got to decide. What do you want? Okay, so piston material, do you want cast aluminum, do you want forged, or you want hypertectic, or you want all three?
All three.
Okay. Now we're going to get results. And what you're doing is you're trying to keep this broad. Okay. Now I did see compression height on there, so we need to pick compression heights. What rod options do we have? Now we can go from a compression height as short as 1.082 all the way up to, and that's just in these bores that we've selected, 2.245, which is probably the Slant 6. But, and if you're not familiar with what compression height is, it's from the very top of the piston to the center of the wrist pin.
Yeah.
And that's what you're measuring. Now, the shorter it gets, the lower in the hole the piston will sit depending upon your rod, right? So you generally need a longer rod to have that shorter compression height. But let's see here what we can find. All right. Now, these are all of our, essentially your combinations or compression heights that you could have. Now, here's where things get weird. Okay. So piston head volume, you're not worried about. What kind of targeted compression ratio are you shooting for there, Professor P?
Compression ratio, about 9.5 to 1.
9.5 to 1. So do you need a flat top piston and a slant six to achieve a 9.5 to 1?
Yep.
Okay,
Here's right here, the Silverlight cast piston right there. Look at that one.
This one right in front of me here.
Yeah. So that's an inline 6, but that would find out the compression height on that one if it tells you, and that's what you're.
Okay. Now this is for all right. Well, I was actually going to go over here to the filters some more.
Okay.
And you see the filters and where it says, I'm sorry, piston head volume. Okay, so our flat top piston, the volume is going to be nothing, 0, right? You want it to be flat, so there's no dish, there's no crown. So the big thing to do is you pick the 1, 1.5. Anything in the 1 area here is probably pretty good. It's anything more than 2 cc is not. It's almost not even noticeable. Okay, 0, of course, and you got a minus point, so 1/10 dish. So don't even sweat that. Okay, and those are actually domed. Okay, a negative cc is a dome. All right, and I think that's about it, right? So we'll get our results. And let's see if that Silverlight's still on there. Okay, there he is. There's our Silverlight, top of the heap. Okay, let's click on this dude. All right, and here's where the thing gets fun. All right, you know what your piston looks like. You got a true flat top piston here, and then the rings on it are 5/64s, 5/64s, 3/16. And you scroll down here and you look at the stuff that nobody ever looks at. All right, compression height 1.740.
That's about right. Yep.
Is that about what you need? Okay, so the pin diameter is a 901.
That's it, 901. I couldn't remember. I thought it was 900, but yeah.
Okay, so and you could use this in a slant 6, but they have what size is the wrist pin? It's the same as a big block Dodge, right?
No, I think this one is a 9. I think this is a 901 on this one.
Well, it is, but what size wrist pin is used in a slant 6?
901 if it's a press pin.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is probably a slant 6 piston.
It is slant 6. 100% slant 6.
Okay, all right. Well, let's find something that's not for the slant 6.
Yeah.
Okay, so here you go. 3.478-inch bore Chevrolet H6, which is your inline 6, so probably like a 292 or something, right? Set of 6 pistons, $504.99. Let's see what the compression height is on it. Okay. All right. So the compression height on this is 1.584. And if you were using a slant 6, and Shane was saying that 1.7 something was the slant 6 piston, right? How long is the rod on a slant 6?
6.6 something, but you can also run a long rod on those too.
Okay, and that's what you'd have to do in this combo.
Yeah.
Is run a long rod. Now, if you can get the top of the piston within about 100 thousandths of the top of the block, that's just machine work, right? You just have the block decked. It doesn't matter if you deck it 10 thousandths or 100 thousandths. It's the same price. Okay, so then you're looking at a pin diameter of 0.8 inches. So that means it's got a really small wrist pin here. And if you were going to use, if you were going to use a slant 6, you would bush that wrist pin to use this 0.8 inch wrist pin. But you can see those little valve reliefs here in the top. Let's see what the CC is on this sucker. It says flat top, no valve reliefs, but it's showing in the picture valve reliefs. Okay.
Yeah, I know, but it doesn't represent.
Right. Okay. So, but there's a ton of them. And this is how you do it without doing custom pistons. You find something that's relatively close, and then you bush your rod or you narrow the rod or whatever you need to do to make this piston fit. The other thing is, I'll go through here sometimes, and if you look on the side, it'll ask you, once you get it narrowed down enough and get rid of some of this dumb stuff like piston style, well, we know we're going for a flat top, and we'll get rid of the ones here we'll even pick the ones with the valve reliefs. It doesn't really matter. Okay. But you get enough filters on here and it'll start asking you what the thickness of rings that you want. Oh, now it's asking you the wrist pin diameter. But
yeah, because it's getting so close to a slant 6. That's as far as what we're filtering it to.
Right.
But it does ask you the compression height right there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You want me to just pick one?
Yeah, do the 1740 right there.
Okay. Now it's going to pull up just a slant 6 piston.
Yeah, but let's just see if they got any extra different rings.
Okay, so that's a 564's 564's. Oh, what's this? Steel power cast piston. I bet it's probably 564's. But we'll scroll down and look here. 564's 564's 3/16. Sometimes you'll get lucky where it'll be like let's say a Ford 3.6 liter with direct injection. It has the same compression height that what you need, and the wrist pin's relatively close. You could bush your rod, but it'll have a 1.2 millimeter, 1.2 millimeter, 3 millimeter oil ring. That's where you get lucky on those. Is you can pretty much use anything off the shelf. So I'll get off my soapbox here, I guess, and get rid of this.
Hey, John, where's the Schmidt Show garage at right now? Because I was kind of keeping track where we're going. That it looks like he's gained some people already. He's doing pretty good. He was under 100. I would like to see him at least 100. Where he's at.
Let's see here. Okay.
Oh, he's only at 79, man. Come on, guys. Go and subscribe.
Well, he's got what, 29 subs this one live, right? So
yeah.
Let's see here.
79. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I subbed almost 20 minutes ago and I was number 77.
Well, okay. So what? I'm off my soapbox now, but everybody's saying that was great. So I'm glad I helped somebody out. I hope that helps you. That's helped me a lot because I've spent so many hours running those filters, and
you can do the same thing with rods too. You can do the exact same thing with rods, and if you have a rod, you can do the same thing with cranks. I mean, there's that's and Rock Auto's a huge help too for bearings because you could just go year, and then just pull up different bearings, finding out which ones were full groove, which ones are half grooves, 3/4 grooves.
I do it all the time. Just like that's how I found out that the turbocharged V6 Grand National bearings that they sell for race bearings, they don't offer them for 300 because nobody ever buys them for 300. But it's the same damn bearing. So you could literally go buy 2 sets of them, put them in your 300, and now you get a full set of race bearings in your 300 that nobody else makes. But you just bought 2 sets of V6 Buicks. And here's the cool thing. It's like, you're thinking, oh man, I got to buy 2 sets. Well, you got to remember, it's only a V6. So it's only got you're only ended up with 1 extra main bearing or something, maybe 2. One of them be the thrust.
Blue Grit Garage says that he's ahead of the curve. Yes, you're ahead of the curve. He's subscribed last week.
Okay.
Yeah. You know, John, I know that normally when you do the person who's getting close to 500, you do a show to get them over that 500. You should do one for Barkley right away. Get him.
Oh, I don't know about right away, but
get him right away. Do it right now.
Make some videos, man.
Yeah,
That's
get him going.
Make some videos.
Yeah.
All right. So
get him 100 subs. Yeah. John did something, and this is the thing. He told people if you just put out a short every day for a month, you would gain subscribers. And that's 100% the truth.
Oh yeah. Well, the rule of thumb when we first started No Name National is that Bear Rose Garage was having a hard time getting the ball rolling, right? I mean, think about it, and I'll give you his situation. He decided he was going to do it in January when we announced it. I'm in for this, so I'm gonna do it. So it's January. in northern Idaho, and it's like minus 40 degrees, and this dude's going out and pulling motors and starts swapping stuff around so he could get ready for No Name National. So of course, it's a big bummer when you go out there and you use yourself in that. Like if you've ever hit your finger when it's cold like that, it's like your finger just wants to explode and break off. So he was having a tough time, and it was hard to get the subs rolling and all that. And I just pulled him aside one night when we did the live, and I said, "Look, man, this is all you got to do: a video a day, no more than 12 minutes, and that's it. It doesn't matter what you do it on, right? Your channel isn't really established. Just get out there and get in people's browser history, because that's how YouTube works. Is it attaches itself in your browser history, and then it looks for somebody that's returning watching videos and sees you in their browser history. They start pushing them your videos. And so a video a day, every day, 12 minutes, right? No more than 12 minutes. You'll lose the audience after 12. It doesn't matter what you're doing it on. Here's where I found gold, and you can find it too. At 11 minutes, 59 seconds, they're out of here. Yeah. Right?
I say under 10. I always try to keep it between 8 and 10 minutes. Just over 8, just under 10. Because I lose interest after that too, myself. But Schmidt, if we do that, you got to register, man. You're not even registered. He's not registered for the No Name Nationals yet, isn't he?
I don't know.
He's not registered. Go register. Register now.
So Buick Smith says, Dallas, I meant to ask you, are those 3.8 bearings larger side radius than the stock 300? I do not know. I haven't had them up close, but all I did was what you saw me do there with Summit, and I was just looking at main bearings, the individual replacement main bearings, and I came up with the part number for the Turbo V6 Buick, and that's where I came up with those. So I'd like to buy a set, but I don't need to buy a set at the moment. And when I finally get to that bridge, I'll cross it and I will buy them bearings, and I'll give you a full report. Especially 2 years ago when I was doing Jack the Giant Killer and I couldn't get main bearings. Everything was shut down and no one was going to fire up anything to make 300 Buick bearings.
Right. Same Slant 6.
I would have freaking been all over some turbocharged Grand National bearings, because I'm sure they're stacked up like cordwood compared to the 300. So let's see. John Wilburn says 50-second shorts bring the subs, Barkley. I can help. They're easy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it does work, because I literally stopped doing videos and I just started doing shorts, because I just don't have time to do a video, make all that production. I got just as many subs, and I kept my sub count that comes in over the month, and I really don't care about subs, but it does show that it doesn't really matter what you're putting out there. As long as you're putting something out there, it does still come in. So
yeah. Man, wait till we get into bearing spacers one day, and you can figure out which ones have the same bore spacing as your engine, and you can start swapping cranks. That's the one I really want to do.
Yeah. I that was like the thing I used to love. They used to have these bearing spacers for not Slant 6, for LAs. So that was like the biggest thing they used to do, is I would get a 360, and then I would run, like, say, a 318 crank with bearing spacers, and it was called the poor man's 340. And then you bore it 40 over, so then you would have literally, say, 360 on the side would have the same bore and the same stroke as a 340. I did that quite a bit, but then they stopped making those spacers, and then I just went to 360 cranks, but then I had just brought the engine speed down slightly. But yeah,
I love bearing spacers.
I do
too.
too.
There needs to be, like, hello, any company out there listening, Seal Power, King Bearing, anybody, make bearing spacers for junk, right? That's the coolest thing. Make bearing spacers to where I can put a 215 crank in a 350 Buick block. I mean, do it. It's the same bore spacing. Why not?
Yeah. No, I think it's awesome too. Yeah, I love bearing spacers, because I would turn down a crankshaft in a minute.
Let's see. All right. Well, is there anything that you want to talk about tonight on Tech Talk?
No, I didn't have anything prepared.
Oh no,
I didn't have
man.
anything
We
for
were
today.
talking about what rod ratio today.
I was talking about Rod, but I didn't. I was so busy at work today. I was actually. I can't even talk about what I was working at doing at work.
I'm tired from working, but I can't tell you what I was working on.
Yeah, and it's really cool, man. It's really cool stuff. It would definitely it would make this crowd happy, and I can't even talk about it. But I can tell you it was Lunati stuff. That's all I can tell you. So it's really cool. You guys are gonna be really stoked coming out soon. I took a lot of knowledge that I had from my previous employer, and I'm bringing that all to the Lunati and just completely revamping the whole Lunati line. In fact, we had just a post just a minute ago. I was actually getting it up here, but I took these pictures. We're getting them. It's the first time that these are actually going out to the market here. Don't you hate it when you got to find something? Yeah, I took these pictures. Go full John Wilburn here, but these are rods that are finally leaving our building. I took those. That's on the Lunati Power. So yeah, that's actually kind of a cool thing. So
Huh.
yeah,
Yeah, well,
so
you're revamping the whole line, right? So
everything.
yeah.
Yeah.
Blue Grit Garage says Anna and I have been posting every day, still going slow as far as getting subs on the car videos. Anna has been getting better luck with animal shorts. We need about 250 subs, so whatever works. It doesn't matter, bro. As long as you hit that 500 number, you are good to go.
Yeah.
And
The,
I
the
mean, it
car thing
does.
is saturated. Just know the whole car market is completely saturated right now. Especially, I would say in the last 3 years, it's like tripled the amount of people that have like. I'm one of those people. Slant Daily Garage, right? But there's how many people like right now? Blue Great Garage. There's a whole bunch of garages out there right now. So a lot.
Yeah, and I did Mr. Rotter's neighborhood on purpose because everyone else was a garage.
Right.
It was. I was like, oh man, everybody's garage.
And when I did mine though, it was Slant Daily for the longest time, and then I was like, well, I want to know that that I'm actually working on cars. I was like, oh, be in my garage, and I didn't look at YouTube before I put the name Slant Daily Garage. I literally didn't do that, and I was just like, great, I'm a garage guy.
Let's see. Michael Schmidt saying, any possibility there will be more than one No Name Nationals next year? Probably not. I would say that is 10,000 to 1 odds.
Just look at John Wilburn over there, and how much work it is. I can almost equivalently tell you he's going to say no.
Let's see. Clint Street Machine says, just visited a buddy with a 430 in his Riviera. Pros and cons of that engine. 2 Buick for here. No, the 430 is a good engine. It's just like 400, 430, 455. It's all the same engine family. The problem with the 430 is if you go back and look at some, I did a video called Give an F Friday 430, I think it was, something like that. Don't give an F Friday, something like that. And the 430 has a notoriously small oil pickup size. I guess, where should I start this at? Okay. The 400, 430, and 455 big block Buicks are based off of the architecture and design of the 215 engine, right? That was the biggest bang for the buck Buick had for a long time, was the 215 engine family. So it's just a bigger version of that. The problem is they kept the same oil pickup size as the 215. So it had a 7/16 oil pickup tube and a main bearing that was 3.5 inches or 3.25 inches. And the original 215 had a 2.3 inch main. So now you're talking like something that's an inch more in oil, and you have the same pickup tube for it. Okay. Way back when they designed that 215, that the pickup tube was probably just fine.
Yeah.
Uh,
But an inch more in diameter, that's a
right.
lot more surface area.
It's almost double like the surface area.
And then times that by 5 main bearings.
Right. And now you start seeing the inherent flaws of the Buick family line is that they all are based around that same thing. Well, it wasn't until originally like 1970 when Buick did the 455 stage one that they got that large 5/8 pickup tube. So a 430 has the same pickup tube. Now, if it's grandma's 430 and it was just in a Riviera or a LeSabre or something and it just drove around and it never saw anything over like 3,000 RPM, it was probably totally fine. But the second that thing went up over $4,000, they were having main problems. And so you have to drill all of those out, those passages out to the larger diameter size stuff. And that's what's pretty much required if you want it to live up above 4,500. So, and that's just where you start. There's a bunch of other little things too, but the 430s appear to have the best set of cylinder heads that are non-stage one or stage two. They're just a factory head. Matter of fact, the 430 in 67 and 68 had a cylinder head called the Big Port, and the Big Port cylinder head was almost 40 CFM bigger than the factory 455 head. So, which is a significant amount.
Yeah. John Wilburn's responding to me, asking actually Michael Schmidt if there's going to be a second No Name Nationals down there at 8:35. You should read his response.
Oh, is it epic?
It's pretty good. It's typical John Wilburn fashion on him saying no.
Let's see, Michael Schmidt. There's as much chance for me waking up as a black female in the North Pole as they're just making a second No Name Nationals. We still need people to register on Memorial Day to make that goal.
And Schmidt Show Garage, yes, you need to register. You can't even be out here talking about it unless you're registered. You got to be in
no
that.
one's going to panhandle these subs if you haven't registered yet.
Yeah, I didn't know that, man. Go register. Go do it right now. Right, the next line down. John Wilburn put it up there. Go to the No Name National Square site. Register. Get it in there. Then we'll start panhandling.
Well, you know the sad thing is I haven't registered either.
What?
I still haven't registered. No, I haven't.
Oh, I've registered like.
Yeah. I asked John one time if I could pay for it in ramen noodles, and he told me he preferred cash.
Prefer cash, yeah.
Yeah.
So that way he can go buy the ramen noodles, right?
Maybe so. I don't know. Oh, Levi's Backyard Performance says Barclay, it's affordable and one of the most budget-friendly events I've been to. You know, Levi, Barclay has been the event manager for the past 2 years. So he's familiar with the No Name Nationals.
Yeah.
Let's see. All right. Well, okay. Well, dang it. Now you're going to make me and Shane start talking about buying Mexican food in Southern California while waiting for a camshaft to be ground. or street racing at the 905.
No, I'm going to tell a little bit more about some Slant 6 stuff. You know, I mean, at this point, let's just talk about it. So here's my plan with Plan Z is that I'm going to make an engine that's going to be 9 to 9.5 to 1 compression, somewhere in that range. I'm hoping for like 9.2. And then that way I can test cams. I'm going to put a turbo on it, obviously with the carburetor. We talked about that. But then me and Dallas were talking about it too. I'm gonna spray some juice to this thing, man. You know, just see what's the best power adder for the cheapest amount that you can put on one of these things and go racing. So we're gonna baseline it and see, you know, with the turbo, these parts, how much faster it goes. And then we're going to try to, and I have plenty of transmissions out there. Then I'm going to put a transmission in it that's going to have all the trick whiz bang stuff in it. You know, the billet drum, you know, the extra clutches, the low ratio gear, trans brake, an awesome converter, all that stuff. And then I'm going to put stuff in there that everybody else can have. So here's what you have. This is what you get. This is the whiz bang stuff. Now here's nitrous with what you got. The whiz bang stuff, and then I'm just basically going to keep stepping it up each time. And then I'm going to have we're going to go out there on a Thursday. Oh no, it's on Saturday. to Buffalo, right? That's when they do
Yeah.
tests into it at Buffalo, and we're gonna basically do at least 3 complete different combinations right there at the track. Just
Well, the one where this all started off was a smartest or God, what am I thinking today? A car that is a small cubic inch.
yes,
It makes big changes when you do something to it, right?
small changes make big changes on the top end. Yeah,
Right. And so the one that we originally talked about was go to the track, put it all together, and put some steel wheels on it with regular tires and run it, and then go to the lightweight stuff and see what it really picks up just from that. And it's going to be a drastic change. So that's what was cool about having a small cubic inch mid-weight car, is that you do little things to it and they add up fast, real
hmm
fast.
yeah. And
And
I've got different tire sizes. I've got all kinds of cool different things. I have those slicks that I had on the Lizard King, which are like 23-inch diameter tires. I have the 26s. Does it really make a difference? Does that? One's a drag radial, one's a slick. Well, it doesn't work, better with the low ratio first gear. We're gonna try everything and just do it all
you
in
know
a
that
day.
I need to get something together for the drag strip that's consistent automatic stuff, because I would love to do some videos on. There's still people that run tubes. Okay, tubes are way long, old time ago,
Yes,
1960s, 70s.
I don't run tubes.
Yeah, I don't run tubes either. But you throw that big honking heavy freaking um, Mickey Thompson tube in there with the ferruled end on it so that you can screw the stem to the wheel and all that stuff. By the time you get it all in there and it's holding air and it's not going flat within, like, I don't know, a couple days, it weighs twice as much, right? And that rotating mass is just brutal on stuff. And I learned a long time ago, it was like, oh man, this drag slick's got a bead on it. Well, I don't see why it wouldn't seat and just, but people would always talk about the screws going through the wheels. That's where they leak all the air. That's where they let the air out.
Don't go that
And
deep.
dude, I tell you what, I had this freaking epiphany. Now I'm sitting there looking at it like, yeah, the screws would go through the bead and they would let it leak. And why
Mind
don't I
blowing.
just put some damn RTV on the screw and run it
Yeah,
in?
it's
And
exactly.
that's what I did. And they don't leak.
Yeah, that's it. And what I did is, and here's another thing too, is I drilled the hole a little bigger, so that way the thread of the screw doesn't pick up the aluminum and push the rubber in, because I was noticing that too. So it's bigger, so it only grabs the rubber on the tire and then it pulls it in. And then I put a little bead of silicone in there, and you pull it, and you can actually watch the rubber cinch up, and it actually seals it better.
Yeah.
And on my car, on the Cookie Monster right now, man, it's got 15 pounds of air pressure in those things, and it stays 15 pounds. And I don't have a tube in those, and those are well drag lights.
Huh.
Yeah,
Yeah,
doesn't
I
leak.
see it. Barclay's even on here saying it right now. I got screws and no tubes. Yeah, that's the way to go, bud.
Yeah,
Like, I'll never do it any other way from now
no,
on.
it's so light. It's incredibly light too.
Yeah, but I'm telling you, I had put tubes in. I was running tubes and the whole 9 yards, and I got to feeling the difference between them. And it's like, oh my god, dude, I need to take
Yeah.
these tubes out. They're freaking heavy.
Well, Levi's saying right below that, he goes, well, for soft wall slicks in a heavy car, that's where tubes can be used. Then get a stiff wall get a stiff
Slick.
wall,
Yeah,
tire,
yeah.
because that's all
There's
you really
actually
accomplish.
no gain. You're going to get no gain out of a tube.
Yeah.
Period. You need to figure out how to get that wheel to seal up.
Yeah. And Schmidt was saying the same thing. He broke a tube mid track. I've done that too. I've actually broken in my well drag line. I broke a tube, and I was like, yeah, I'm never doing this again.
It just becomes like all right. The easiest way to explain it is if you go to a demo derby and you see a tire getting on a wheel that's just flopping around, it's got no air in it. That's what happens on a drag car, except for instead of just flopping around in the mud, it's literally going 100 something miles an hour and it's
Yeah,
freaking spinning super fast and it's so out of balance it'll shake your teeth loose in your face.
you feel it.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Speaking of that, the one thing I gotta always say, and I said this when we first started this, but it's really apparent now, that I put this is the very first ATI dampener that I've ever had on a small block Mopar for myself, right? I've always had like a fluid dampener or a stock dampener or whatnot. I got to tell you, man, it is the smoothest running engine that you've
The
ever had.
ATI.
Dude, it is just amazing.
I was
Yeah.
impressed because I'd never had nothing that expensive on junk that I had, right?
Mhm.
And when I had this motor built, like, see, I would have built this motor myself. I literally was going on deployment, like, I got to the United States, let's see, December of 2010. I went to school for 2 months. I came out of there in February of 2010. I went to Jacksonville, Florida, and March the 1st, I checked in, and March the 3rd, I went on deployment, right?
Wow.
I had no time in between just transferring and leave and school. And so I literally, I just took all the parts. I took it to this guy and like, hey man, you're the guy that I see on Engine Masters. And by the time I get home from deployment, I have already cash. So here's a bunch of parts, right? Like hopefully I have it running by the time I get home. And that's what happened. And he put all that stuff on there. And I just essentially just wrote up a check when we were done. Well, probably paid him cash. I don't even remember. But they fired that thing up, and I mean, it sounded healthy and all that, but it wasn't until I put it in the car and had, see, I'm still old
Mhm.
school. I got solid motor mounts. I don't even have a freaking motor plate. It's got solid motor mounts and
Yep.
then a torque strap, and
Yeah.
it
It's the
doesn't
same.
vibrate all that bad.
No.
And I'm like, what in the world?
Over
You know?
3,000, about as soon as it gets over 3,500, 4,000, it smooths right out, you
Yeah,
know?
it's smooth, smooth.
Yeah,
But,
and that's funny too, is I went to an engine plate too on mine, on the front,
right.
and I had mounts on it, solid mounts on it with a strap with a chain in San Diego, and I put a plate on it. Man, that's all the difference in the world, all the difference.
So Dizzy Izzy is asking here, seems to me that another single ring at the bottom of a piston would make for better longevity. Keep the piston square in the bore. How wrong am I?
Big time, because there
Yeah,
you get no oil up there,
there
and then
has
also
that's
too,
been
with the
tried.
yeah, it's been tried. But
So don't
yeah,
think your logic is flawed. That's been tried.
yes, people had tried, but yeah, it flawed. It flopped. It's just not gonna work. Oil's the biggest thing, really.
Yeah, that so keeping the piston square in the bore, the easiest way to do this is actually have a long rod because it doesn't really change off center much. I mean, it's like
Mhm.
literally just a little bit kind of side to side. If you got a really short rod like a Chevrolet small block, like a 5.7 inch or even a 302 Ford at 509 inch,
With a
um,
4-inch stroke, yeah, then you're
yeah,
starting to
they start to really get the rod angle on them's pretty heavy. So it side loads the piston real bad, is what causes them to taper the bore. Um,
and they start popping out the bottom of the block.
But I think most manufacturers these days, they've kind of got it all figured out now when it comes to rod to stroke ratio. And because if you look at it, there isn't any engines that like you're like, oh man, that thing's a 60,000 mile loser, right? Like when I was a teenager, 60,000 miles, the car was garbage,
Yeah.
like
Oh, yeah.
junk,
50,000, it was like, "Oh, I gotta think about buying a new car, putting
right?
a new engine in it," you
That's
know?
why
Yeah.
like all these youngsters today, the I don't know, the millennials and all that. Oh man, I got myself a muscle car. It's got 80,000 miles original on it. And I'm like, in 1987, if you would have said that, would have said, take it to the junkyard, right? Like
Yeah.
that was a lot of miles.
Hey, POS Racing saying that our audio is really low.
Oh,
Is it?
really?
Yeah, he says it's really quiet tonight. Is it?
Um,
I don't know. You
to
sound this is the
me, it
first time
sounds
I've actually
fine.
yeah, it's the first time I've actually heard you really good. I in a
I
while.
have my audio turned pretty far down.
Okay. Well,
So yeah, and
yeah.
Colleen's saying the audio sounds the same to her.
Yeah, well, only reason I'm saying is because sometimes my
Oh,
computer will go back to factory settings.
okay, no, no, here you go. This is what it is. Shane and Dallas, your audio is very quiet tonight. If it is
Oh,
Shane and Dallas, it's
it might
most
be
likely
you.
your machine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
because sometimes my settings will go to a factory default where this sounds like I'm in a tunnel or something. Yeah.
yeah. But okay. Let's see.
Oh, yeah, he says, Levi was saying motor plates are for, um, race cars, street cars have motor mounts, and T members are yeah.
I
Well,
don't see where you're seeing this one at. Where are you seeing that
oh,
at?
2 above.
Okay. Motor plates are for race cars. Street cars have motor mounts on D cross member. Okay, on probably the cross member.
Yeah, on the cross member. The only reason why I went to a plate on the front is because I would still have motor mounts on it, honestly, but because I'm going to be hitting it with nitrous, and it's going to be that instant power. That's the only reason why I did it. Does yours
No,
does you have a plate on yours?
I don't have motor plates.
No.
And the reason why I don't is because, well, when I put the thing together, nobody made a motor plate for a freaking Cleveland and a Ford. Well, Cleveland headed Windsor and a Ford,
Yeah.
right? I had a
my
hard
son
time just
did
getting
plate.
headers.
Yeah, exactly. Me too. There was one company, and I still have them. That's it. And they stopped making them. So, yeah,
When
this
you
is
get
it.
to race car stuff, the reason why race cars have the motor plates, there's a couple of reasons for it.
Yeah.
One, it keeps the engine square instead of flexing all over, and it doesn't flex the block. Motor mounts flex the block,
100%.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Motor plates make it more of a pain in the ass to work on it. Most racers don't want that. They want open engine bay, real simple, easy, change the plugs, done, right?
Yeah.
But the kind of junk that Shane and I both have is like, I hate working on it because it's nothing ever fits right, and it's never close, and there's never any room, and
I have to make everything.
yeah, that's how
Anytime
I
I want to do
was.
something to it, I got to make it. It's like,
So,
damn.
did I ever tell you my first, like, why I own a welder? Like, I don't know if I ever told you this.
No.
Okay, so I went to get a set of headers, and there was one set of headers made. Hedman Headers made a set of headers for a Cleveland 4-barrel Cleveland in a Fox body. And the Fox body that they're talking about is a Mustang, of course, and not a T-Bird. And so, and just give me a couple minutes and I'll be done. So the thing is like an aftermarket header, that there was a company named Cooks. I don't know if they even exist anymore. Probably do. They were big high-end stuff.
Yeah.
It was $2,500 for a set of headers, right? Custom made headers fit my T-Bird. And I'm like, $2,500. These Headmans are $600. So I'm like, well, how bad can they be? So I bought them and I put them. Well, I attempted to put them on the car, and it got down to where there's like one tube cleared, and all other three tubes on the passenger side were cut off. Right.
Yeah,
and I'm like, man, all right, well, it's still cheaper if I just go buy a welder and I cut and weld all this stuff up myself. And at the end, I'll have a $1,200 set of headers that nobody else has, and a free welder. Right. So, yeah. So that's how I ended up with it.
Colleen was asking, why would motor plate interfere with spark plugs? That's because when you have like a Chevrolet, the spark plugs are underneath the tube. So sometimes it's a pain in the ass, especially if they're angled. If you're dealing with small block Mopars, it typically is not an issue. Where you're going to have a problem with the small block Mopars is just finding a place to put it.
And it's not really that the motor plate would actually interfere with the spark
It's just
plug.
everything else.
Right. The place that the motor plate is occupying, the space, is generally the space that the header would need to be. So then the header's moved over, so it's interfering with your spark plug, and you can't get to it. Like, you got to see the contraption, like the concoction of tools I got to do to get a spark plug out of my motor. Right. I literally got I have a regular, because it's got the non-tapered seat plug. So it's the straight thread with the crush washer on it. So then you need, what is it, a 13/16 socket? So you slide the 13/16 on, and then you got to get, I got to get a swivel with a 6-inch. And then once you have the swivel with the 6-inch, then you can either use you got to get another, it's preferably put another universal joint in it with a 12-inch long extension. And then you put a wrench on that damn socket.
Yeah.
So that you can hold all that stuff together and turn it slow. And you just want to pop it loose, take the wrench off, and then you can spin it out. Right. But it's like, you can't, it's just such a mess of stuff to get in there.
Yeah. Mine's
I
same
still
way.
don't even have motor plates.
Yeah. Mine's just on now when I put the motor plate of mine, I was able to drop my engine down a little bit and slide it back a little farther. So it gave me a little bit more room within my damn master cylinder, in my world, the master cylinder is my nemesis. Where it's at, where it's this far from a header, it's this far from the valve cover, and it's this far from one of the bolts, and there's 2 spark plugs right underneath it, so it's just it's always in the way. I do that side first when I adjust the valves, so when I'm angry, the easy side is easy.
I think that brings up a good point. What Dylan Levi brought up earlier was, I think if I'm going to do a classified street car versus race car, it's going to have rubber motor mounts in it. That's it.
No, for me, it's the fuel. For me, it's fuel.
Rubber motor mounts. You got rubber motor mounts in it, and it's a street car. It's a legit street car if you got rubber motor mounts. But see, you're going to be limited. You can't do like 1,000 horse.
Yeah, but if you have rubber mounts, but then you can put a strap on it, a torque strap, and then
a torque strap works.
Yeah, but then you're solid mount on one side. Then so it's.
I don't know, man. It still has flex. It still has movement. You can't get them big gonzo headers in it because it hits the floor, it hits the chassis, and because it tweaks.
No, I made this really bitchin' torque strap for Mopars. On the cross member where it comes up, there's one little on the K member right there. And then what I did is I got a piece of all thread that was, I think it was 3/8. It was fine thread, stainless steel, down there at Marshall's and off of Miramar Road. And then I got a rubber, like for a shock, rubber mounts, and then a plate on one side and a plate on the other, just for a shock mount. Then it came all the way up, and then on the driver's side on a small block Mopar, there's one bolt right there. It's a 3/8 bolt. So what I did is I had it all set up so you could take that bolt out, drive it around. The car drove, when the wife would drive it all week. Then when we go street race it, I would screw that bolt into the head, torque that down. And so now you had literally a completely solid mount. I used to sell those things. And all you had to drill was one tiny 3/8 hole into the K member right there. And it was an awesome piece. It worked amazing. And it was and the bolt was what was one of those things? It was one of those little spherical ends, that I used to get at Marshall's. What are those things called? Rod ends. It was a rod end that went in there. So it had a little thing that you would bolt it in, and it would move over, and then when you unbolted it, it came back away, and it was about 1 inch away. I might make one of those for someone because, man, they were easy and they were awesome.
Well, I'm going to make what they call elephant ears, which is what predates the motor plate, where they're just
those on the Mopars just came right off. Yeah.
And so I'm going to make some of those for my '63 Buick, but I think it's time to wrap it up tonight. But Michael Schmidt just sent us an awesome super chat here.
Yeah.
So thanks a lot. He says a great piston search tip. Thanks again. Gotta go. So he's out.
Right.
So I hope that piston searching deal helps people out in any way possible. So
hey, once again, $10 keeps the lights on. There you go.
And the coffee flowing.
Right. Little John Wilburn. Here's the thing. You always have to bring a little John Wilburn quote in. John Wilburn here, John Wilburn keeping the lights on, so and so forth, right?
Yeah. Well, and if you haven't noticed, John is he's live Friday too.
That's right.
Yeah, tune in Friday and check out what he says right here.
Yeah.
Fun live tonight, everyone. I'll see you Friday. So be it as Friday on live, or it's Friday night live. Or I heard that if you don't go, your cat will explode and not be in the microwave.
And that's on the John Wilburn channel at 7 Central on his channel. Yeah, go check it out. It's on Friday night, so just come and hang out, drink beers, talk whatever. It's about whatever.
Yeah. So other than that, though, I think we don't have anything. We're out.
Yeah. Oh, Buff Del Campo's here. I wanted to say thanks again personally to him for the TA extractors. I'm going to make a little video on those, what I'm going to do with those. They're vents for my 68 Dart, which is my road race car. So thanks, buddy. I really appreciate those. Thank you very much.
All right. Well, with that, we're out of here. We'll see you cats on the flip side next Wednesday.
Yeah. See you guys later.